What's up, guys? I'm really excited for today's miracle. For the last 30 something, whatever, 38 miracles, I think, 36, we've gone over the miracles of Jesus. And when I started looking at doing these videos, I started searching either from just reading the scriptures. I started making my own list. So I got a spreadsheet and I started in Matthew and I started recording the miracles. And I was like, yeah, this is going to really help the world. And then after a few of them, I was like, I bet someone's done this before. Yeah, I realized how prideful that was for me to think that. So I was like, I Googled it, the miracles of Jesus. Obviously, there's a bajillion websites that have a list of the miracles that Jesus did. You can look at the list of miracles Jesus did, and then you can separate them out. Like, these are the ones healing, these are the ones casting out devils, these are the ones where he shows power over the elements. So a lot of work had already gone into that. So I was able to copy some of these lists. But the funny thing that I thought was missing from the list were the biggest miracles that Jesus ever did. Why isn't the creation on here? Why isn't he being resurrected on these lists? And I'm sure there's a lot of websites out there that have these things included in their lists. When I was looking, I did not find one that have these things, and it was kind of frustrating. And that's why I try in a lot of my videos. You'll hear me talk about the miracles that Jesus performed during his ministry, because I want to specify that we don't know what miracles he did before he was 30, before this life, not much after this life. He did a ton. We're only looking at the miracles that these four authors chose to mention. And I think we're only getting a tiny, slim amount of ones that are mentioned. But I still think we're missing the biggest ones. So today we're talking about the creation, which I feel is the biggest miracle that, not the biggest, but one of the biggest that deserves more mentioning. I believe, guys, that Jesus Christ created the world. I don't know what hand Heavenly Father had in that, if he directed it and then Jesus kind of took over the operations of doing what the Father wanted him to do. Seems to be the style. It's kind of how Jesus rolls, is doing the will of his Father. So kind of in my head, it seems like the Father asked Jesus to create the world and he did it. How that happened, who was there to help, if we were all there and we all had shovels or whatever, I don't know. I'm not sure how it happened. I know we have the story of Genesis, and I think there's a good reason why it is the first thing mentioned in the Bible, because it is so very, very important for us to understand why we are here. So why did Jesus create the world? That is the huge question that we're looking at. If that's such a huge thing, why did he do it? I don't think it was just for fun. And I think we can look at the steps of the creation to see why the creation happened. I like, in Genesis, when we talk about day one separating, God said, let there be light, and there was light. So there was light, and they separated the light from the darkness. And then we kind of get like the waters from the earth, maybe from earthquakes or whatever that we were making mountains that created the oceans. Not sure how that happened, but then we have land, and then on the land we have plants, seeds, things start growing on there. Then we have the sun, the moon, the stars, which I always wonder, I'm like, well, why isn't that day one stuff, the sun, the moon, the stars? Where did that come from before? Or could they just not see it? Was that not visible before? Maybe because there wasn't the atmosphere or whatever, or the earth wasn't turning. Maybe it went into rotation that day. I don't know. I don't know way more than I do know about how it happened. But I love studying it. From there, so once we have like the sun and the moon and the stars, and we have the plants and everything, then we go on, then we start having fish in there, or fish in the sea, birds in the air. We start growing from that, and then we get bigger animals, larger animals. We get whales. Whales is mentioned early on, which I think is cool. And then we get humans. Adam was created, and I can only imagine what a dude was doing here by himself with all those animals. He was probably wrestling lions and riding bears, and who knows what he was doing. He was probably having a crazy time, and but through the 6 days, the creation was not complete with Adam, and I think that is so interesting. And I say 6 days. Just to take a little side note here, some people think that a day is 1,000 years, which it says in the scriptures, a day is 1,000 years for God. If the creation happened in like 6 24-hour periods, 6,000 years or whatever, however it happened, it really seems to me, and looking at some of the translations and what words mean, that day is an age. A period of time. So I don't think we know how long day one took. Day one could have taken 20 billion years, or a year, or a day, or I don't know. But I feel like each day is an unspecific term, and it seems like the original, at least the original language that we got the Bible from, says it's a period of time, it's an age. So don't know. How long did the stars and the moon take? I don't know. I don't know if they were there before, if they got plucked out later. No idea. Fish and the birds, maybe the plants, maybe they were allowed a long time so they could grow and have trees and stuff, so that when the animals came, they'd have shelter and food and this sort of thing. I don't know. So whether the creation each day was 1 billion years, 1,000 years, 24 hours, I don't know. It seems that it was an unspecific length of time, and it could have been anything. If it did happen in 24 hours, one of these things in 24 hours, I believe it. Jesus can do anything. And I think we've learned that over these miracles. If he wanted to create the whole world in 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever, it could have happened. I love learning about the science and the creation and the Big Bang and stuff, and I think all that is so fascinating to learn about. And if the Big Bang is how it happened, I'm a little skeptical of that. I had some physics classes where we learned about that, and I think the stretch between what happened in the center of a star or lightning hit or something to all of a sudden there was life that could reproduce, that's a big stretch. It doesn't seem like life is just being created all over the place. It seems like things would die and fall apart. But however it happened, if the Big Bang's how it happened that way because Jesus set that in motion. So that's definitely not like a spiritual thing for me. If the Big Bang is how it happened, then fantastic. It just seems like that is such a huge stretch. It seems like it would take far more faith in that gap of reasoning of how life started than believing in God. I think it's, for me, it's easier to believe in God, but to believe in the mechanics of how that happened, it's a stretch. But it might have happened, and if it did, that's fantastic. If it was in 6 billion years, 100 billion years, 3 seconds, 6 days, 6 24-hour periods, whatever it was, I don't think we have enough information from what is provided to know the length of time for each of these. So if it's 4.5 billion years or whatever scientists say today that it was, then that's fantastic. And for me, my faith doesn't change because Jesus started it. However, anyway, getting back to the creation. So we got this whole creation, probably billions of years, I think. We get to the point with creation, we have animals, we have land, the earth is rotating, there's day and night, we have all this. We have Adam out there, riding brontosauruses or whatever. And I don't know, that's not in my version of Genesis. But creation was not complete until a woman was created. And why was that? Why was creation not complete until Eve was created? And I love that. I love that Eve was the culmination. That was the peak. That was the final chapter of the creation, was the creation of Eve. And I love that. And I think that to me, again, this is how I see things. Not necessarily my church or other churches or whatever. This is how I see things. I believe the creation ended with Eve because our world was created for us to come to learn how to become more like God. We had to have experiences to help us to achieve that. So we come here and we go through life and we learn things and we learn to trust and have faith on God to help us to become more like Him. Eve, the woman, is obviously crucial in that happening because she is going to give birth to God's children. She is the culmination of the creation because she is the one that's going to bring those children to earth. And I feel that, yeah, Adam was super important too. He was the first one made, but I also feel a lot that Adam and men are there to support the Eves in their life and the children in their life, and to provide for them and protect them and help raise them in such a way, help raise the children in such a way that they can grow to become like their moms, like God. And I think that, to me, that seems like the plan. That's why the woman was the ultimate creation, the end point of the creation. That was the God's ultimate creation. And I love that. I think that's fascinating. So it ends with the creation. We have the 7 days. Day 7, they rest. Jesus rests because the earth has been prepared. Eve is there. She can reproduce. She can bring God's children. She can raise God's children. And I think it's fascinating because if God did all this, if God the Father did all this, Jesus did all this to bring children to earth, that is like the biggest thing that I believe our Heavenly Father has dedicated Himself to. I believe He directed Jesus to create the world and have a place for His children to come to. I think that is important because I'm guessing God, who is all powerful, all knowing, He could be doing a lot of stuff. He could be golfing or sitting on a beach or creating Tahiti and then sitting on the beach in Tahiti. He could be doing a lot of things. And I think it's interesting to note that what He chooses, what he's dedicating His time to is His children, is to us, to creating a world where His children can come to and they can have experiences to grow to become more like Him, to grow and be perfected and have faith and learn how to be like Him. And that I believe is why the creation happened. I believe we're here, and the earth is here for His children to come to. And I think everything is prepared through the creation of the world, those 7 days. If it happened exactly like that on different days, and then it stopped, and they took a break, and then the next day started, I don't know. And it could have happened like that. It could have happened different ways. But I think that however it happened, creating the world was necessary for Heavenly Father's children to come here and have these experiences. You and I are the reasons God created the world. Jesus created the world. He made it for us. He made it so we could come here and have these human experiences to become like Him. And I love that. In John and Hebrew, Colossians. I always want to say Colossians or something, but I think it's Colossians. Colossians, first chapter of each of those books talks about Jesus being the creator. And I think that makes perfect sense. I think God the Father is directing things and has this plan. And I think Jesus Christ is the one from those verses that we read, chapters we read. He sent Jesus Christ to create the world. Then he sent Jesus Christ to be the perfect example. And then he sent Jesus Christ to die and pave the way for us to return to him. We're going to talk about those other things, his next two big miracles, in our next videos. But creation, freaking awesome, made for us to come here and have these experiences in life. The creation, I think, is a far greater miracle than filling the nets with fish or something. And if you look at through that lens, yeah, Jesus created the world. Yeah, of course he was able to have 153 fish jump in the nets. Of course he could turn water into wine. He created the world. It's not too much of a stretch. Once we take our restrictions off what we feel Jesus can do, and he overcame death and he was resurrected and he set the perfect example, creation of the world, that is huge. Not only huge because what he is capable of doing, but what he has done and why he's done it. And he's done it because of us. And he's done it because of his love for us, which I think is huge. I think that alone is a huge miracle, that he loves us. He loves you and me so much that he did all that work to create the world, come to the earth, set a perfect example, teach, perform those miracles, and die and overcome death. So that horrible death, those last days of his life, is what we're going to cover next, because for some reason that was necessary as part of this plan. That was the next huge step after the creation for all this to happen.